Yay, yay, hello, and welcome to this week Training Tuesday Live. I'm excited to have you with us here today, whether you're catching us live or watching the replay, talking about dark social. What is it? What the heck is it? And why you should care about it. Hello, if we've not met before, my name is Jessika Phillips with Now Marketing Group and the Relationship Marketing System. And I am super excited to have a special guest with us, Ross, which we'll introduce in a minute. And as well as my awesome co-host, he's Mike Gingerich. He's the president of Digital Hill, the co-founder of the popular apps Waptio, Tab Site, and author extraordinaire. How's it going, gentlemen? How's your week going so far?
It is good.
I'm doing well. How about you, Ross?
I am doing very well. I'm in the throes of moving, so nothing like looking at all of your things going, why do I still have this sitting in a box somewhere?
And then all the things that you want to find, you're like, what box is it in? Yeah,
you do find stuff, which is weird. It's like, hey, I was looking for you a month and a half ago. So
right.
Exactly. Yep. Well, before we dive in, Mike, I'm going to let you introduce our special guest, Ross. And if you're watching with us now, please put in the comments where you're joining in from. We'd love to welcome you to the show as well.
Yes. All right. So a little bit more detail. Ross is CEO of Social Magnets. See the gear he's got on there? You can see that. Flash it. All right. There it is. Yes. A marketing company that helps executives, speakers, influencers, and brands grow their online audience and authority. He's head of social for Adobe Partners, contributor for CMO.com, and ranked in BuzzSumo's top 100 social media influencers. So all of that means that he's got all the answers today. So we're ready to dive into the dark
No
web.
pressure. Done.
The all-knowing, me and the singularity, we just talked, and I've got a few things for you guys.
I'm excited.
Right.
I'm really, really excited to dive into this topic, dark social. And although it may be the first time you're hearing, it's really not a new topic. It was actually introduced in 2012 by a gentleman at the Atlantic named Alex, where he wrote about this thing happening that was kind of freaking marketers and some businesses out there trying to track their analytics, and it's called dark social. However, we're really wanting to focus and talk about it today, the reason we're bringing in Ross, because we feel, and we've been talking about it here on this show, that there's becoming an increasing trend where people are having these private conversations, one-off conversations, whether in Messenger. Messenger is the fastest growing app that's out there, as well as groups and text messaging and all of those that are one-off conversations, which brings us to the definition of what dark social is. And Ross, I don't know if you want to give that definition, or I can give kind of the standard definition of it first.
Well, go ahead. One thing I will throw out there is the prefix to it is dark web and dark social are two different things. So it's not the dark web. There's nothing sinister here. It's simply a different form of social sharing that isn't really showing up on people's radars and analytics, more importantly, which obviously is going to make a huge impact. And it's growing. And so this is where all of a sudden it's something you can't just be like, well, who cares about that little bit that's not showing up and getting attribution? Now, the numbers, even conservatively, are quite large.
Yeah, and you nailed it. I mean, that really is the definition of it. Dark social is when people are sharing content through, private channels, basically, whether that's text, instant messaging, email even, right? And it's any web traffic that's not attributed to the known source. So we don't know where this traffic is coming from. And you said larger numbers. Now it's saying that dark social has been reported to be responsible for 84% of outbound sharing, which is kind of a big deal. That is that's a lot. So this is something that we need to at least talk about, be aware of, and then what to do about it at the end of the day. So where do you see, Ross, getting started even with dark social and the understanding and importance of kind of where it exists today? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but what are you seeing right now?
For a second.
You still with me, Ross?
I am.
Oh, I froze?
Jessika, there she's come
robot?
back. You were robotic, which is talking about the future. I knew she was from the future. Here we talk about, I would say the first thing that we have to think about when we're getting started, even wrapping our head around dark social, is, and it goes right back to social, the little history book of social actually paints the same picture, which is in the beginning it was something, hey, okay, it's just something small. Oh, we don't need to care about that. That's a fad. That's going to come and go. That's irrelevant, until it wasn't. And that's what's happening right now with dark social. So dark social, as digital marketing and all the technology push, and we start getting into deep personalization, and we get into AI, and we get into all these things that are bringing a new era of how we market. The problem is then you think, well, great, look at all this analytics we've got. That means we can attribute everything. We've got all this data. Look, it's going to be so easy. We're going to press buttons, and little bots are going to tell us what to do. Don't tell me what to do. So here's the thing, is with dark social, it can't be ignored anymore, because the problem is you have this expansion of private messaging, and more of the conversation, the attention is going into these platforms, taking less of it out of the public domain. So if you think about things like Facebook, where I always thought it was awkward and unnatural that if I say a comment, naturally as humans, we don't call everybody we've ever known and, hey, I just said your cat is fluffy. And like, there's no point to that. But when we broadcast, right, personally, as we use social media, you see that happening. Now, when you take it to a marketing standpoint with business, you think about how marketers tried to use social as a broadcast media instead of understanding that it's a little bit more targeted, a little more personal. With dark social, if all these conversations are now moving out of that public broadcast section, even the private ones, and moving into a private scenario, now how do we get the attribution? All of a sudden, this creates a big problem for marketers, because if you try and go either personally and go, oh, wow, it looks like social media numbers are coming down a little bit. Well, there's always a reason behind that stuff, and it doesn't mean they're coming down. They could actually be getting bigger, but if you can't see those conversations, if it's not showing in your native analytics, it creates a real problem, and it creates an even bigger problem when you're trying to sell your campaign to a client or to your manager and say, here, and they're seeing what appears to be dwindling numbers from the analytics, and there's a big piece that goes dark, and that's why we call it dark social. It sits in the shadow.
It's especially important when you're writing a really good piece of content. Honestly, we started testing, and we'll get into like finding out like how to track this, right? Dark social, but writing in some controversial and helpful and super helpful topics, and just putting short links to those so it could be tracked, and found out like it is being shared, like you said, a lot more. So as a brand, you may write this really helpful piece or really controversial piece that maybe it's harder to talk about, and you're wondering how it's going to perform online. And like you said, Ross, it may look by all social accounts that people aren't reading and engaging with it, but it could just be that they're sending it one off because it did resonate with them, and they're sending it to their friend or team member or someone else. I know I do that a ton with my team. I'll see something online, I grab it, I send it via email. I'm not sharing it on social and then tagging all of them. I'm sending it in private messages. And I'm sure all of you that are watching and listening, let us know, are you doing this too? Do you find yourself sharing more one-off things in a private Facebook group or a message, or simply sharing it via text or an email, even when you're finding articles that are resonating with you, versus flooding your newsfeed of social, like Ross is saying, and making it public facing, right? So how are you sharing that? And studies are showing that more people are going to these private conversations. That's what we've talked about, the one-to-one. And this is not just for marketers. We're thinking like marketers, and all of you listening are marketers. That's where our brain goes, like, oh my God, how can we measure it? And it's also, though, on the brand's end too, how do we know if our content's even resonating, because we're not able to track it. Our analytics look skewed, and now you're blaming the guy that's writing it, and all while it could be something that's actually performing really well.
Well, and how do you even plan for that at that point? Because the problem is let's say that you say, hey, look, the attention, whereas what we all follow as marketers, is going over here. Let's go play in that ecosystem. Except for now we have a problem. Well, now if I play in that ecosystem, I don't know what's coming. Like right now I could say, well, I did this on LinkedIn, and I can tell you what happened on LinkedIn, and I can tell you what happened on Twitter. But when you get into dark social, a lot of times, like if people are using like Google Analytics or something, tracking traffic back, or like the little glimpses that they're getting, if it says direct traffic or whatever, you don't actually know where that is. are we putting the wrong effort? So then think about platforms. Should we be on WhatsApp? Should we be on Facebook Messenger? What's working for us? Well, now you're saying we got to be part of this conversation, but you're telling me I won't know if it works. I won't know how to track it. And so it's creating a lot of kind of weird things.
A lot of anguish for marketers, right? A lot of anguish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's another point though, and that's kind of look at the rise of Instagram, and Instagram doesn't lend itself at all to web traffic trackable really well. You know what I'm saying? With only such limited options. The bio and if you can get it to access that, but it's one of those that doesn't. So marketers even had to adapt the way they talked or what they shared on Instagram. But then if somebody wants to share something on Instagram, they prompt you with a direct message option, right? I mean, that's one of those. So if you want to share something, boom, you can send it one-to-one so easily, so quickly. So Instagram itself has had a role in changing that game for sure. And then you got to take it to the next level. And Zuckerberg is saying that he's going to integrate what is it, Messenger with Instagram direct messaging as the first step in their interconnectivity. So again, just building that bridge across there.
Yeah.
Well, and you brought up a point about Instagram, and I would say one of the pieces that I was looking at when I was looking at this conversation was how Snapchat really, I hated them initially because as somebody who one of the things we do at Social Magnets is we grow targeted audiences, and that platform was entirely closed. Like in the beginning, if you didn't know who you were looking for and know their code or know that, it was totally weird. It was like, okay, that's cool if I want to talk to 12 people. And it's funny because when you zoom out and you look at the whole scope of these trends and many times things come out and then it's kind of like, okay, the hype wears off for a minute and then it goes away quietly into the night. And the technologies, people weren't quite ready for them, or they were there and they were fundamental, but people didn't know how that was going to really expand. Video was the same way. Oh, video hype. And then, okay, let's talk to a smaller group. So,
and shifting because of all these changes as well. But to answer your question, I see privacy continuing to be something that people are monitoring more closely moving forward now that more of this has come to light over the past few years with Facebook's, Cambridge Analytica stuff, as well as just knowing now that we've been in this generation of anybody can find anything on you. And you're like,
the funny thing is going back to this idea of kind of where dark social evolved from and where it's going and why that matters is one of the driving factors is generational considerations. So when you have millennials and Gen Zers, they're actually very much community focused. So when we take a look at how all of the big corporations, everybody was like, now, I want to talk to Gen Z. Or how do I talk to millennials? It was then it was Gen Z. And now all of the, Marvel shows, it's like every superhero is 14 years old now. It's like, what happened to the full-grown adult superhero? But the thing is if you look at this and then you think about privacy, how do they feel about advertising? How do they feel about marketing and companies and how brands are starting to have to evolve to meet up the current generational way of doing things? Well, they were native texters. They grew up on, texting and messaging and social, and then comes Snapchat and then comes Instagram. And so these are the people that I think are driving this. And so that's part of that conversation on privacy, which is that they have their tribe and they don't really care about, it's just like even when you look at how those generational changes impact the future of work, it's the same type of thing. Well, they don't care about getting that big house necessarily and having the title, and they want flat organizations and they want to make a difference. If you just look at all that and you apply it, it cannot be ignored. So this is the piece of the conversation. Why we're having this conversation is because dark social isn't just about analytics and attribution. It's not just about, how am I going to report or how am I going to do this? It's already, the herd has moved, right? And we have to figure out as marketers, how does that affect us? How do we utilize that in a genuine and authentic relationship, which is, of course, perfect for here with my friend is all about the relationship marketing, because I can guarantee you one thing. When it comes to marketing in dark social and through messengers and things like this, you absolutely have to take a different approach than you would doing a Facebook ad or a broadcast style message. You have to change your whole game. And if you can't tune in and realize that now you're getting into a sacred space, this is a conversation and you know it's going to come. There's not a place where you're going to go where there isn't going to be some marketing or billboard or anything. You know, it reminds me of like when they, you know, you go to a club and there's ads in front of the urinals and like at airports and all that. Like, we don't care where you are or what you're doing. We want to flash something to you. Maybe you'll buy something. And it's like, okay, this is getting awkward, but that's going to come. So we have to learn these rules as marketers. We have to first become aware of what it is. Then we have to say, how can I integrate that today? How can I at least get in there? And some of that's just awareness. And then it's like, what are the rules of that space? Yep. It reminds me of when you said, it reminds me of Google Glass when you brought up Cambridge Analytica. All that is deep personalization. I mean, there may be some other shady things going on, but that's a pushback on society going, hold on, I don't want you to know me so well that you can just start to change governments and do stuff. It's like, it was the same way with Google Glass, which is like, hey, what's this technology doing? You're freaking me out here. Are you recording me? Are you looking at me? Still one of my favorite YouTube ones is the thing where the guy's taking a selfie and he gets punched because the guy thinks he's taking a picture of his girlfriend and he's sitting here taking a selfie. And it's like, no, man, I'm just taking a selfie here. And it's like, okay, you're freaking us out with this technology. So dark social is a thing. We got to figure it out. We got to learn how to use it. And I put in my notes, it's kind of from a marketing standpoint, the phrase is going from broadcast to besties. Like,
I like it.
That's the thinking that goes behind here. These are more small tribe communications.
Yeah. And marketers hate that, that term really to begin with, because they like to broadcast, because broadcast is easy, right? We get that message all the time. People call up and say, hey, how can we broadcast to the right people, but now I like that term, broadcast to besties, because I mean, when you look at that millennial and Z and how they're operating, what platforms are most important to them, it's definitely this dark social. It's definitely what's dominant for them. The smaller, the one-to-one, and then coming back, just reaffirming what you said there about. So what's a marketer do? Hey, you're going to have to get authentic and actually have a relationship with people, one-to-one.
Yeah.
That pay off in the end because they are the voice box for your brand after that. So it's like making an impact with that one person that can share it out. Now there are some ways, and I definitely want to continue talking about that topic, but also sharing some things that people could do. You can do now to measure this, right? Like, so if you're concerned and we're like, okay, there's all the bad news. I don't know where 84% of my outbound traffic's going. Great. Now what do I do about it, right? So there are some things that you can do, and you've probably already seen some brands doing this today now, which is using trackable links instead of just sharing the links from your website. So what do we mean by that? So you can get attribution. We're talking about either creating like a Bitly account. There's several different ways. We're just going to share a couple of them. But like one of them is like a Bitly account that you can sign up for and make custom links that then you're tracking that specific link. Now it's never perfect, right? But it's something that you can at least attribute back then to that article. That's one kind of freemium, if you will, a way of tracking these links. And then there are some other tools that you can build into your website or use. Like we personally use like a HubSpot one that does that for us. Google has one, and I'm sure you guys know about some too. Ross, what would be your kind of suggestions for tracking, if you will?
Well, I think that there's a couple of pieces there. There's the link, right, where you can hit the tracking there. There's what can you do on the page? Are you building variations of page? Are you trying to measure that up and line that up to segment your traffic? And even those things, there's no catch-all, because let's say that you throw out a link and it's got a Bitly on it and they go to the page. What we're not seeing is when they share it to their friend, because they're on the page. And so they go up to the top of the website, they take the URL in their browser and they send that and they message that over. And so right now, I'd love to say that there's tons of amazing options, but the fact is, there's no catch-all, in my opinion, right now for that. I actually think that AI is really, and it sounds like a weird play because people aren't thinking about AI in maybe directly in that sense, but AI is going to, I think, help with attribution a lot. You need to, there are so many ways and paths you need, you're not going to just be able to manage all of that independently by design. I think you're going to have some additional help to really be able to track it. And the good and the bad news is, hey, 84% of your stuff might be of your shares might be dark social. Well, it's like, but you can't see that. So it's like right now we're reporting on there. So to me as a marketer, I'm like, yay, I'm like 3x as good as I think I am. I just can't report it in any meaningful way because I don't know. But
that's what we got to tell all of our clients next time we go into the meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you're not really
better than you thought I was.
% of it. Like this is just, that's how good we are, right?
Yeah,
like,
I'm only reporting about 25% to you because I like to stay humble.
There you go.
Humble brag. Humble brag on my analytics. The other thing that I think that is key here is if you look moving forward, we're also going to see this happen, and I think maybe it'll get integrated with chatbots, and that's where I say the AI play comes in, because a chatbot can reside. A chatbot will have all that data. Now it goes back to the privacy loop. How much of that data are you going to be able to access? Is it going to be a situation where that data resides over there, or who owns the data, which is always the conversation in tech right now, as far as understanding and knowing the value of what you're doing. So I think that if there becomes a way where the people have chatbots built in and you can get that understanding and that feedback back about what they're sharing, at least for your units, it's kind of like coming through there, then great, kick that, talk about anonymized data in a sense, like it's still useful. We need that data as marketers for sure.
Yeah. Oh no, it looks like the video feed cut. I'm sorry, Barb. StreamYard looks like they're having some issues today. It keeps telling me the video feed keeps coming in and out. I just spoke on this, by the way, Ross. I said every time we have Ross on the show, I jinxed it. I said there's some kind of tech something.
There is.
There's so much wisdom. You just break the internet every time.
Magnetic field.
Every time. Magnet marketers and social magnets, when you bring them together, it's just
exactly.
The universe
it's this field that's very it's disrupting the space-time continuum here.
There you go.
Well, hopefully the replay will play all the way back. If not, I apologize for the tech issues. We will be recapping this with a blog with all the takeaways and whatnots. But I did put in the comment here another tool that will do this now. I want to preface, I've not used this tool. I've only heard about this tool. But it is meant for some of the dark social monitoring, like Ross is saying, an AI tool. It's kind of a built-in tool that you could use in conjunction with your website that will then create the links that are tracking. So it basically creates new links for every time somebody's sharing it. But it's getsocial.io, and it's a pay-to-play tool. So that is one that's out there. I know Google has some tools that you can use as well to create different links for your site. Yeah.
Take my money.
Take my money now. Yeah, right. So those are a couple suggestions, but if nothing else, like we said, you can create like bit.ly links, right? Just at least start there and test some things out, as well as, just knowing that some of this is going there, because like you said, it's making a big impact on your analytics with social, as well as your analytics on your website, as well as, I'm wondering how big of a play this has on your overall like search engine optimization because of, relevancy and authority. But like, I don't know if this is going to impact the search engine optimization overall, if people aren't sharing things publicly where it's going, or if it's just going privately, if that's having an impact or not, that's to be determined. There is some controversial articles back and forth that says that this does have an impact on SEO. So some things to consider and to another reason why you track it. So you know what content's resonating, which makes sense. But that's to be determined. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Well, I think Google will step up in there and maybe change the weight. Like if people think they're being penalized for this, I think it'll actually flip. I think those more weight will go on those signals because Google knows and is going to actually see. If you look at the value of a share, a personal share, and think about it, like you can look at the conversion of why would someone like, why is someone lurking, why are they liking, why are they commenting? Whoa, the gold, they commented, you know, then if you take that based on effort, how much effort it takes, then more people will like than comment. That takes more effort. If you think about the effort it takes to copy a link and go to your pull up your messenger and send that, that's actually a really high signal of quality. So the fact that Google would not take advantage of that and see that as a very high signal, I think they would. I think whatever their stance is right now, I think they'll relook at that.
Instagram has already done that. If you save an article on Instagram, they take that as a bigger signal because somebody's wanting to go back to it, and that directly increases your engagement and overall visibility on Instagram, right? So I definitely think you're spot on with this, that is a huge weighted signal that somebody is interested because of the effort. Yeah.
And this goes to, I'm going to throw out, shout out to Mark Schaefer. He, a while back, he said he was talking about SEO, and he's like, I'm not doing all that. I'm just going to write good articles. I'm not going to write it and optimize it. And it's funny because if you look at the trajectory of SEO and data-driven marketing, it's everybody wants to, why not get that little edge and we get better in searching and stuff. But okay, great. But at the end of the day, the other organic way, if you want to boil it down and not get into the tech side, sorry, all of my analyst nerds that I am one of, but then for the other people, it's how about you just know that people will be sharing that content. And if you can make that content so high quality, so relevant, so compelling, and targeted, which changes your whole mindset about having those relationships, knowing your audience, doing all the right things, then guess what? You can know without having to have a feedback signal that you're getting a lot of exposure. And that still will show up in a bulk pool on your Google Analytics. Your traffic, if you start to see your traffic bump up, and it's not because it's a percentage, again, a nerd, I would just go calculate what's my percentage of increase over social versus all of this. And I could know, now I can start to see dark social working for me. And that's going to come back to quality. Because as we said, that's not, even versus a comment actually requires me to think and stop and say something, and then I'm publicly saying something, so it has to be something that people are self-conscious of all those things. Whereas the cool thing about dark social is copying the link and sharing it with a friend tells me that post is quality, maybe even more than a comment, because in a way the workflow is a little easier because I don't have to engage. I can do it wherever. But I am definitely telling you, this is so important. And my wife brought up a great point today. Of course, I was having breakfast and I was telling her about dark social. So funny. I tell her about all kinds of stuff. I can only imagine.
Romantic talk at breakfast,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, your French toast is so good. What do you know about dark social? So then I'm telling her about it, and she says, you know what? And I love my wife. Of course, I hope I married her, but I love her also because she's a great sounding board from someone who doesn't really care about necessarily what I'm doing. So it's a great kind of outside the zone, marketers talking to marketers, Yeah, that's a little bit of an echo chamber. But I told her, and she goes, you know what? She goes, yeah, I do that. After I told her what it was, she's like, I do that all the time. I share stuff to my friends in a message because I don't want to share it out publicly. And I don't want Google or Facebook algorithms to start putting ads up all over the place about this topic. And I put this great thing. You look over there, and I kind of went from Facebook for a little while, then I came back. And I came back, and one time just for fun, when I came back, because I felt like, I've been away and I've been doing all these projects and stuff. And I just scrolled for a straight half hour. It's just like eating nachos in front of the TV. It was horrible. I scrolled and I said, I'm not going to stop. I want to know everything. Yeah, I binge scrolled. And there was so much political stuff, and I don't really get into that, and I don't really care about that. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much. And I get it that the social media pushes so much of this in the feed. Some people like it, some people hate it. But when it comes to things like that, it's a perfect example of a driver of dark social, because somebody may not want to say, hey, I like this candidate or that candidate, because instantly they're going to get jumped on by all their friends and family about how dumb they are for whatever they said. And so that's more likely where they're going to say, you know what? I'm going to send this out. I'm going to text this. I can't believe this dumb article. Look at this or something. And that brings us to a point, circling back, that the platforms really had this, right? When they let you, a long time ago, they had the capability, but no one associates it that way. Like I can send that to a list. I can make a list of people who it's relevant to. I could tag, but you brought up the good point, which is how many people are willing to do that versus just copying and pasting the link in a group they already have in something. For Adobe, we have on Twitter, even we brought up some groups on Facebook and stuff like that. Even on Twitter, we have DM groups. And it's like those conversations, there's so many little pools of conversations.
Exactly.
And
that's where I spend all my time.
Business is happening.
Yeah.
And so organizations definitely have to think about this when they're thinking about their marketing strategy, because I say it all the time, business isn't getting easier. It's getting more complex. And so people can say, well, why don't I just ignore dark social? Well, when you see people like Gary Vee throwing out his phone number and telling people to text him, when you have an audience that size, and I'm going to shout this out to all the big brands who think that they can't stop saying, but it's not scalable. Well, yes and no. Yes, it is. He's going all in. He dove into the pool head first and gave his phone number out, to millions of people. But he also understands the bigger play on that is the relationships and the fruit of that. And I think that's the thing when we think about private messaging platforms and direct email links and stuff like that. That conversation and attention is highly valuable. And if you aren't going to be a part of it, you are going to be the people like who said social media is dumb. We don't need it. Yeah. And then until every business wants to be on Facebook, giving them their money.
Exactly.
You got to watch these trends, right? I mean, it's not just something to, hey, that's an outlier. It's something that's a reality, and so businesses need to be, having these kind of conversations and thinking about that for their company, because it's a reality.
Yeah, it's the T-Rex biting at the fence, and you're like, it's fine. And over here we have the gift shop, and it's like, no, it isn't. The T-Rex is coming. Get out of here.
There you go.
That's a good analogy.
I got a good visual in my mind there.
I know, see? Recently we were watching these with the kids, and of course, I was never a dinosaur guy. There. Kids drag you into everything.
Yes, they do.
And that's what we're doing. We're dragging everyone into these conversations, that I think awareness is the best tool. Even before you get into tools, strategies, all that, you know what? Just be aware of what it is. Be aware that it's going on. Be aware that a big part of your branding is happening without you.
84%
and you're not even designing for it.
Yeah. And that's what I was just going to ask, as we recap here, like last finishing thoughts. I mean, that was it. Like, be aware, right? And know that these are happening. Pay attention to this conversation. And then more importantly, how it is applicable to your brand and what's happening there. So, again, we're saying this is only trending to increase with the private conversations and the one-to-one. So think about, what does that look like to your brand, for your brand? How could you facilitate some of those one-to-one conversations and personalize your approach a little bit more and kind of join in versus revolting against something that you can't change, right? So it's what it is. So, but, that's, I guess, my 2 cents finishing thoughts is really just be aware. How are you cultivating relationships and conversations? And how are you, looking at your content via people that are sharing it versus in private conversations, like we're talking about dark social, and how can you apply that then to your brand? Mike, what would be your last finishing thoughts? And we'll finish it out with Ross.
Well, I think, a couple of things that you mentioned there. So what are you doing with tracking links? I mean, there's some value in that type of piece there. And then, you can't ignore it. You're going to have to take a look at it. I mean, we've heard Zuckerberg, when was that? In April, when he said they're rebuilding their messaging platform, and because private messaging is the future. So don't ignore it. Begin to make sure you're using it. You're comfortable with some of these tools, and you're taking a look at ways that you can kind of engage in that one-to-one or smaller group area. So it's time to be beginning, definitely exploring that, being aware of that, studying that, and testing some of those pieces out of what is going to be relevant, helpful for your business with your audience.
Yeah. And Ross, real quick before you give yours, Tim says, "Hey guys, I love the bright green and orange walls."
Hey.
Of course, the magnet people would also come in super bright here, right?
I knew it was going to be orange, and I knew green was complimentary. So
you're
there
thinking
you
ahead.
go.
Thinking ahead.
Mind hacking the audience into making comments like that. We are marketers.
Oh.
So hold on, get my focus in here. I didn't turn on my auto focusing because it goes crazy if I do that. So so here's what I'm going to say. I think great points. Here's the thing to remember. The dark social, the mechanics of dark social are little groups of trust.
Yeah.
Those are little tribes, little groups of trust. What a little tribe is. These are people who are connected. And so I think there's a bigger message for all the marketers, which is that trust and relationship, it's not a convenience. It's not like, oh, that's nice. Worrying about, will that scale? You can't afford to worry about scale. You need to get in and get personal and have real trust with your brand and those people, because that's what gives you access. You may not get access. Oh, I know access is coming, because anytime you have an attention pool like that, you're going to get Facebook starting to sell messages and ads into the platform. Like, it's just the way it is. I know there's been pushback. They've tried it. WhatsApp says they're never going to do ads and all this and that. Okay. But once everybody's there and the conversation is there, it's not going to be commercial free. So the fact is, also, I would say, be an early adopter. Everybody now is like, oh, I should get a Facebook page. No, I get people to still say that. When I talk to them, they're like, well, we got to, and I'm like, why? I'm like, especially if you're putting no budget behind it, like, because they're working on information from 10 years ago. And so they finally stepped up to do something, and the whole thing moved already. It's like, okay. And so there's definite big advantages.
In your 401k plan at 89.
Yeah, exactly. There's advantages. Hey,
better late than never.
The 90s were the best. We all know that, but that's not the point. The thing is be an early adopter. So once those things start pushing into messenger apps and chat bots, things like that, as a matter of fact, I mean, one of my clients right now, CloudScale, intelligent intranets. They're doing the same thing with employee advocacy on an individual basis, but they're part of a whole. Why? Because you need company culture. It's that cohesiveness. How do we treat you like an individual but get the benefits of moving as a group? It's the same thing happening in digital transformation with technology stacks, everything. Company culture doesn't matter. All these stories are the same. And so knowing that, applying that to dark social, you'll see that you need to be able to be in a big pool, but be able to be personalized simultaneously. And if you can do that, definitely once they start letting you run some ads and stuff, get on early and be an early adopter, because early adopters where the market's already there, you're not trying to create a market. It's not a little dinky thing. It's massive and no one's paying attention to it. So when you get to go in and share a voice and, like the pizza companies, oh, just text the emoji and get a pizza. Like, that seems dumb, but when you realize that they're swimming in the blue ocean going, no one's here, we can do something here, then do it. That would be my suggestion on Dark Zone. And I'm going to finish with a point that I should be pumping out a piece on socialmagnets.net.
Yes.
And
I was going to ask where people could connect with you. And so, good.
Yeah, we're going to do a piece on Dark Social. We'll get some feedback with Jessika and Mike on that as well. That should be going up hopefully today or tomorrow. So look for that. And then, of course, they can find me on Twitter, Ross_Quintana.
On the Twitters and the Twitches, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they can find me over there getting a little salty. I am a gamer, so
yeah.
See me play COD. You can find me there too.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for your time today and wisdom that you shared with us. Thank you, Mike, as always, for being here as well. And all of you for joining in with us live, whether you're catching the replay. Again, apologize for the tech disconnect issues. Hopefully the replay is good, but nonetheless, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Thanks,
everyone. Take care, folks.